I'm Chloe, 29, female, and my mother used my credit card to book a secret $6,200 vacation for herself and my sister after we all agreed to be financially responsible this year. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the lie, a lie built on a foundation of countless others that had defined our relationship for my entire life. It was the final straw, the one that broke not just my trust, but the very idea of family I had clung to for so long. The conversation had been refreshingly mature, or so I'd thought at the time. It was a Sunday afternoon, and my mother, Brenda, had called me. Her tone was somber, weighted with a sigh that I had come to recognize as the preamble to a financial problem. "Chloe, honey," she began, "I've been talking with Jess and we've been looking at our budgets. Things are just so tight for everyone right now. We think it's best if we're all responsible this year. No big vacations, no splurging. We just need to focus on saving." I felt a wave of relief so profound it almost made me dizzy. For years, I had been the family's unofficial financial backbone. As a project manager, my life was built on plans, budgets, and predictable outcomes. Their lives were not. My mother, Brenda, worked part-time at a department store, a job she'd held for a decade with no ambition for more, content to complain about her meager paycheck while spending it on non-essentials. My younger sister, Jessica, or Jess, was a self-proclaimed influencer, which in reality meant she had a few thousand followers and a constant need for new clothes and photogenic brunch spots, funded by a patchwork of odd jobs and more often than not, my mother's credit cards or mine. "Mom, I think that's a fantastic idea," I said, my voice full of genuine support. "I'm happy to help you both set up a real budget if you want. We can look at everything together." "Oh, that's so sweet of you, dear, but we've got it handled," she'd said a little too quickly. "We just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. A united front, you know." A united front, the words echoed in my mind. We hadn't been a united front on anything, especially finances, for over a decade. My role was simple: to be the reliable one, the successful one, the one they could turn to when their own lack of planning led to a predictable crisis. My success was not my own, it was a communal resource they felt entitled to tap into. This conversation, this supposed turn toward responsibility, felt like the first glimmer of hope that things might finally change. I allowed myself to believe it. It was a foolish mistake. To understand why the Santorini charge wasn't just a simple case of theft, you have to understand the history. It's a story written in a ledger of financial favors and emotional blackmail. The first major entry was the car. I was 21, fresh out of college and working my first real job. I was meticulously saving for a down payment on a small condo, tracking every penny. My mother's car, a clunker she'd had for years, finally died. She didn't have the credit or the savings for a new one. She sat me down at her kitchen table, her eyes welling with practiced tears. "I don't know what I'm going to do, Chloe," she'd whispered, her hand trembling as she held her coffee cup. "I'll lose my job if I can't get to work. How will I live?" Jess sat beside her, rubbing her back and looking at me with wide, pleading eyes. It was a perfectly choreographed performance. They needed me to co-sign a loan, just co-sign, they promised. My mom would make every single payment. My name was just a formality. I was young and I still believed in the inherent goodness of my own mother. I argued with myself for a week. My gut screamed no. My brain, the logical project manager part of me, laid out the risks, but my heart, the part that still desperately wanted a normal, loving family, caved. I went to the dealership with her. I signed the papers. For 6 months, everything was fine. Then I got a letter from the bank. My mother had missed 2 payments. My pristine credit score, the one I had nurtured like a rare orchid, had taken a significant hit. When I confronted her, she didn't apologize, she got defensive. "Things have been so hard, Chloe, you have no idea the pressure I'm under. A little bill slips your mind." When I pointed out it had damaged my ability to get a mortgage, she waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, you'll be fine, you're smart, you'll figure it out." I ended up taking over the payments myself just to stop the bleeding on my credit report. She never paid me back. She drove that car for years, a shiny silver monument to my first great betrayal. The second defining incident happened just last year. It was a frantic phone call from Jess. "Chloe, you have to help us. The main pipe in Mom's basement just burst. There's water everywhere. The plumber said it's an emergency fix and it's going to cost $2,000 we just don't have." The panic in her voice sounded real. I imagined my mother's small house, the one I grew up in, filling with water. I didn't hesitate. I transferred the money immediately, telling them to just focus on getting it fixed. Thank you, Chloe, you're a lifesaver, Jess had gushed. We'll pay you back as soon as we can. A week went by, I texted to ask how the repairs went, the reply was vague. All handled, such a stressful mess. Then a few days later, I was scrolling through social media, and there it was, a photo posted by one of Jess's friends. It was a group shot of 4 women, including my mother and sister, clinking champagne glasses wrapped in fluffy white robes. The location tag was a luxury spa and resort 2 hours away. The caption read, "Much needed girls' weekend to de-stress." I felt the blood drain from my face. It wasn't a plumbing emergency, it was a spa weekend. I had funded their massages and facials. When I called them ready for a fight, they twisted it. "Oh my God, Chloe, you're twisting this," my mother said, her voice dripping with indignation. "The plumbing issue was real, it just cost a little less than we thought. We were so stressed out from it all, we just needed a little break. You should be happy for us." They never acknowledged the lie, and I never saw a dime of that money again. But the roots of this dynamic went deeper, back to our childhoods. My father left when I was 10 and Jess was 7. After that, my mother seemed to split us into two distinct roles. I was the surrogate adult, the one she confided in about bills and loneliness. Jess was the cherished child, the one who needed to be protected from life's hardships. This was never clearer than when my grandmother passed away, leaving behind a modest inheritance with the specific instruction that it be used for both of her granddaughters' education. It was enough to make a real difference, to give us both a head start, but my mother saw it differently. Jess had just been accepted into a private art school with a hefty price tag. "She's the creative one, Chloe," my mother had explained to me as if it were a simple, inarguable fact. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her. Your state school is so much more affordable." So the inheritance went almost entirely to Jess's tuition. I watched her post photos of her beautiful campus, her exciting art projects, her new friends. Meanwhile, I was working 2 jobs, one at the university library and another waiting tables on weekends, to cover my own expenses and tuition. I was too tired to socialize, too broke to join clubs. I graduated with honors, but also with a mountain of student loans and a quiet, simmering resentment that I buried deep inside. Jess dropped out after 3 semesters, deciding the structured environment was stifling her true artistic spirit. The money was gone, and no one ever apologized for the disparity. So when my mother spoke of a united front on saving money, a small, hopeful part of me dared to imagine that they had finally seen the unfairness of it all, that they finally understood that I was not a bank but a daughter and a sister, that this time we would truly be in it together. It was a beautiful, comforting thought, and it was the last truly naive thought I would ever have about my family. The alert came on a Tuesday morning. I was in my home office, a cup of coffee steaming beside my laptop as I reviewed a complex project timeline. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a notification from my credit card app, the one I used for all my major bills and purchases, the one with the highest credit limit. I glanced at it, expecting to see a recurring subscription charge. Instead, I saw a string of words that made no sense. Charge alert, $6,200. Merchant, Aegean Airlines and Santorini Suites. I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process the information. Santorini. The name itself felt like a fantasy, a place of whitewashed villages and brilliant blue seas from a postcard. I had never been to Santorini. I had never even priced a trip to Santorini. My upcoming vacation plans consisted of a long weekend camping trip with my boyfriend, David, in 2 months. The cost of that was about $200. My first thought was fraud. It had to be. Someone somewhere had stolen my card number and was living out a dream vacation on my dime. A surge of adrenaline and annoyance washed over me. I'd have to call the bank, dispute the charge, get a new card. It was a hassle, a major inconvenience. I unlocked my phone to get the bank's number, my fingers already moving with purpose. But then I paused. A cold, heavy feeling began to settle in my stomach, a dread that was deeper and more personal than the annoyance of random fraud. Aegean Airlines, Santorini Suites. The details were specific, too specific. A random thief might book a flight, maybe a hotel, but this felt like a package, a planned trip. And then, like a key turning in a rusty lock, my mother's words, "FR. 2 weeks ago," clicked into place. No big vacations, no splurging, a united front. My hand started to shake. No, it couldn't be. She wouldn't, not after that conversation. Not after she had looked me in the eye, or at least her voice had sounded sincere over the phone and agreed to be responsible. To do something so brazen, so deceitful, it was a new low even for her. With a sense of rising horror, I navigated to the credit card's web portal on my laptop for more details. The charge was real. It had been processed the night before. There were two line items, one for airline tickets and one for a hotel reservation. The hotel was a five-star resort, a place with private plunge pools and caldera views, the kind of place Jess would drool over on her Instagram feed. I clicked on the airline charge, 3 round-trip tickets. Not one, not two, 3. The cold dread in my stomach turned to ice. One for my mother, one for Jess, and the third, I didn't have to guess. It was for Mark, Jess's perpetually unimpressed boyfriend who seemed to be permanently attached to her hip. The three of them. A perfect little family getaway, leaving me, the responsible one, at home to foot the bill. The air in my office suddenly felt thin, suffocating. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet suburban street. The world outside was normal. A neighbor was walking his dog, a mail truck was making its rounds, but inside my apartment, my own world had tilted on its axis. This wasn't just taking money. This was a profound act of disrespect. It was a calculated decision to deceive me. They had discussed it. They had planned it. They had sat together, likely around my mother's kitchen table, and chosen the flights, picked the luxury hotel, and then one of them had taken out my credit card number, which my mother had saved from a previous emergency, and booked their dream vacation. They did all of this knowing I would be the one to pay for it, believing I either wouldn't notice, or that if I did, I would eventually sigh, complain, and then swallow the cost, just as I always had. The hurt was sharp and physical, a pain in my chest that made it hard to breathe. It was the realization that their perception of me was so fixed, so one-dimensional. I wasn't a person to them, I was a utility. I was the emergency fund, the safety net, the provider of second chances and consequence-free mistakes. My feelings, my financial security, my own dreams, none of it mattered. The image of them laughing, planning this behind my back, flashed in my mind. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. For a few long minutes, I just stood there, paralyzed by the sheer audacity of it all. The old familiar feelings washed over me, the anger, the resentment, the deep, aching sadness for the family I wished I had. I felt the familiar pull to just let it go. To call my mother, to have a screaming match that would end with her crying and me feeling guilty, and then to quietly pay the bill because fighting was more exhausting than surrendering. That was the old Chloe. That was the Chloe they were counting on. But as I stood there staring at my own reflection in the window, something inside me shifted. The pain didn't lessen, but it began to change, to crystallize. The hurt hardened into a cold, clear resolve. The sadness transformed into a quiet, powerful anger. It was the kind of anger that doesn't scream, but acts. My role in this family, the one they had assigned to me, was a cage. I had been rattling the bars for years, asking them to let me out. Now I realized the door had been unlocked the whole time. I just had to be willing to walk through it and lock it behind me. They had made a critical miscalculation. They had pushed me one step too far. They assumed I was the same 21-year-old who buckled under the threat of tears. They thought I was the same 28-year-old who would fund a spa day disguised as an emergency. They didn't know this 29-year-old version of Chloe. They didn't know that the project manager in me, the one who lived for plans and accountability, was about to take over. I walked back to my desk, my movements now calm and deliberate. The shaking had stopped. My breathing was even. I looked at the charge on my screen not as a betrayal, but as a problem to be solved, a project to be managed. The project was titled Operation Reclaim My Life, and the first task was to dismantle their vacation piece by piece with the same methodical precision they had used to plan it. I picked up my phone. My first call was not to my mother. It was to my credit card company's fraud department. Thank you for calling Platinum Card Services. My name is Martin. How can I help you today? The voice on the other end of the line was calm and professional, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I took a deep breath, marshaling my thoughts into the clear, concise language of a project manager outlining a problem. Hello, Martin, my name is Chloe Thompson. I'm calling to report a fraudulent charge on my account. The amount is for $6,200 and it appears to be for airline tickets and a hotel. I see, Ms. Thompson. I can certainly help you with that. Can you confirm the last four digits of your card number and your billing zip code? I provided the information, my voice steady. There was no emotion in it, no hint of the personal devastation behind the call. This was a transaction, a business matter. Martin clacked away on his keyboard. Okay, I see the charge here, Aegean Airlines and a merchant called Santorini Suites. You're saying you did not authorize this transaction. That is correct, I said, the words feeling cool and sharp in my mouth. I did not authorize it. Technically, it wasn't a stranger who had made the charge, but it was unauthorized all the same. In the eyes of the bank, the distinction was irrelevant. In my own mind, it was everything. All right, Ms. Thompson. We will open an investigation immediately. We'll place a temporary credit on your account for the full amount of $6,200 while we resolve this. We will also need to cancel this card and issue you a new one. It should arrive in 3 to 5 business days. Thank you, Martin. That's perfect, I said. It was almost too easy. A few words and the financial damage was already being undone, but I knew this was only the first step. The credit card company would reverse the charge, but the bookings might still exist in the airline and hotel systems tied to my name. I couldn't risk them showing up at the airport and somehow talking their way onto the plane, leaving me to fight a much more complicated battle later. I had to be thorough. My next call was to Aegean Airlines. This one was more complicated. I navigated a labyrinth of automated menus before finally reaching a human being. I explained the situation calmly, giving them the booking reference number I had found in the credit card charge details. I am calling to report a fraudulent booking, I stated, using the same neutral tone. The tickets for Brenda, Jessica, and Mark Thompson were purchased using my stolen credit card information. The charge is being reversed by my bank, and I need you to confirm that the tickets will be voided. The airline representative was hesitant. Ma'am, the tickets are non-refundable. If the charge is reversed, the system will automatically cancel them, but it can take 24 to 48 hours to process. I understand, I said, my project manager brain kicking in to identify the risk. But I need you to do more than that. I need a manual cancellation. I need you to put a note in the system flagging this booking as fraudulent. I cannot have these individuals attempting to check in. I didn't want them to get to the airport and find out. I wanted them to get to the airport, try to check in, and be met with a cold, hard rejection from the system. I wanted the consequence to be as public for them as the humiliation was private for me. There was a long pause, more typing. Okay, ma'am, I have added a note to the reservation. It has been flagged in our system. These e-tickets are now void. They will not be able to board. Thank you, I said, a small, grim sense of satisfaction washing over me. One pillar of their fantasy vacation had just crumbled. The final call was to Santorini Suites. This was the one that felt the most personal. I looked up the hotel online while I was on hold. It was stunning. Infinity pools bled into the horizon, private balconies draped in bougainvillea looked out over the sparkling sea. The suite they had booked was one of the most expensive, complete with a complimentary spa package. They had planned to live in the lap of luxury on my hard work. When I finally got through to the reservations manager, a woman with a pleasant, lilting Greek accent, I explained the situation for a third time. She was immediately sympathetic. Oh, this is terrible. Of course, we will cancel this immediately. I am so sorry this has happened to you. There's one more thing, I said, my voice dropping slightly. The reservation was made under my mother's name, Brenda Thompson, but with my credit card. The booking also includes a spa package. Can you ensure that is canceled as well? But of course, she said, I am looking at the reservation now. It is for a 7-night stay in our honeymoon suite. And yes, a couple's rejuvenation spa package for 2 and an additional serenity massage. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat, a couple's rejuvenation package for my mother and sister. The sheer absurdity of it was almost comical. The third person, Mark, must have been left to his own devices. I will cancel everything, the manager continued, her voice full of professional efficiency. The reservation is now voided. I have also flagged the names associated with this booking in our system in case they try to rebook with another card. We do not tolerate fraudulent activity.
On tight age.
Thank you, I said, feeling the last bit of tension release from my shoulders. You've been very helpful. I hung up the phone and sat back in my chair, the silence of my apartment amplifying the magnitude of what I had just done. In the space of an hour, I had methodically and completely erased their grand Santorini getaway. The flights were gone, the hotel was gone, the spa day was gone. It all existed now only in their minds, a phantom trip they were still happily anticipating. Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification from our family group chat. The chat was titled Fam Bam, a cutesy name Jess had come up with years ago. I opened it with a sense of morbid curiosity. It was a message from Jess. OMG, you guys, I just bought the cutest new sun hat for our trip. Can't wait to be sipping cocktails by the sea, sun, tropical water. Beneath it, my mother had replied with a string of happy emojis. My heart gave a painful thud. They were excited, they were packing, they were completely oblivious. Part of me felt a pang of something that resembled guilt. It was the old, conditioned response, but it was quickly drowned out by the cold reality of their actions. They didn't deserve my guilt. They had orchestrated this entire deception. They were celebrating a lie. I closed the group chat without replying. I watched their messages come in over the next few days, a stream of giddy anticipation. Jess posted a picture of her packed suitcase. My mother sent a text about how she so deserved this break. I read every single one, and with each message, my resolve hardened. I was no longer a participant in their lives. I was an observer, watching a train speed toward a track I knew had been removed. I didn't feel joy in it. I just felt a profound and weary sense of inevitability. I was simply letting the consequences they had set in motion finally, for the first time, arrive at their intended destination. The day of the flight, I woke up with a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I knew what was coming. Their flight was scheduled to depart at 9:15 a.m. They would likely get to the airport around 6:30 or 7:00 a.m., eager and early. I made myself a pot of coffee, my hands not quite steady, and sat on my couch, my phone face up on the coffee table beside me. I was waiting. My boyfriend David had stayed the night. He knew the whole story, had been my silent, supportive witness through the whole ordeal. He was the one who had held me when the initial shock gave way to tears, and the one who had squeezed my shoulder in solidarity when I told him my plan. He sat beside me now, sipping his own coffee, a quiet presence that grounded me. "Are you ready for this?" he asked softly. I shook my head, "No, but it needs to happen." The first message arrived at 6:47 a.m. It was from my mother. At the airport, so excited I could burst. I read it and felt a fresh wave of anger. The performance, the utter commitment to the lie was astonishing. David saw my expression and put his hand over mine. "You're doing the right thing," he murmured. "Remember that." I just nodded, my eyes fixed on the phone. For the next 20 minutes, there was silence. I could picture them perfectly. They would be checking their bags, laughing and joking, completely unaware. They'd be taking selfies for Jess's social media, hashtagging it #Santorini bound or something equally nauseating. They would walk up to the airline counter, passports in hand, beaming with anticipation. And then the world would stop. At 7:09 a.m., my phone erupted. It wasn't a single message, it was a fusillade. A rapid-fire succession of texts and calls, one after another from all three of them. The screen lit up with their names, Mom, Jess, Mark. The first text was from Jess, "Chloe, what is going on? They're saying our tickets are voided." A second later, my mom, "Chloe, call me immediately. There's a problem with the flights. Did your card get declined?" Then Mark, who rarely ever contacted me directly, "Your card didn't work. They're saying the booking was canceled for fraud. You need to fix this now." The phone started ringing. It was my mother. I silenced it. It immediately started ringing again. "Jess." I silenced it again, then Mark. The texts kept pouring in, a chaotic stream of confusion turning rapidly to anger. "Chloe, pick up the phone. This is a nightmare. We're going to miss our flight. Why isn't the hotel reservation showing up either? They said it was canceled too. What did you do?" The final question, the one from my mother, hung in the air. What did you do? Not what happened, but what did you do? Deep down, she knew. She knew this wasn't a mistake. She knew she had been caught. David looked at me, his expression firm. Don't answer, you don't owe them an argument. He was right, I didn't. An argument was what they wanted. It would give them an opening to twist the narrative, to play the victim, to make this my fault. I had planned for this moment. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I opened a new text message addressed to the Fam Bam group chat, the place where their happy vacation planning had lived and breathed. My fingers were perfectly steady as I typed out my reply. It was short, just 4 words. Why did you lie? I hit send. I saw the delivered receipt appear under the message. For a moment, there was silence. No incoming calls, no new texts. I imagined the three of them standing there in the middle of the bustling airport, staring at their phones, the question hanging between them, undeniable and stark. I had not accused them. I had simply turned their own deception back on them. Then the deluge started again, but this time it was different. The confusion was gone, replaced by pure, uncut rage. From my mother, how dare you? After everything I've done for you, you are a cruel, spiteful child, you've ruined everything. From Jess, you are unbelievable, you were just jealous, you couldn't stand to see us happy, sabotage, that's what this is. I took a deep breath, I opened the group chat settings, my thumb hovered over the button block all members and leave group, I pressed it without hesitation. A confirmation box popped up, I confirmed. The chat disappeared from my phone, then I went into my contacts, I blocked my mother's number, I blocked Jess's number, I blocked Mark's number. The phone in my hand went silent, the barrage stopped. The quiet that followed was the most peaceful sound I had ever heard. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, my whole body trembling with the release of years of pent-up tension. It was over, the act was done. David wrapped his arms around me. I'm proud of you, he said into my hair. That was the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. I leaned into him, a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. There was relief, a profound, liberating relief, but there was also grief. I was grieving the loss of my family, not the family I had, the toxic, manipulative entity that had just imploded on an airport floor, but the family I had always wanted, the one I had finally, truly accepted I would never have. Tears started to well in my eyes, not tears of guilt or regret, but of mourning. I was mourning a dream. We spent the rest of the morning in a quiet cocoon. David made breakfast, and we ate in comfortable silence. I knew the war wasn't over. They had been stranded at the airport, humiliated and furious. They wouldn't just let this go. They would find another way to reach me. They would escalate, but for now, in the stillness of my apartment, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time, freedom. It was fragile and new, but it was there. I had finally chosen myself. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. The next morning, the doorbell rang at precisely 7:00 a.m. It wasn't a polite, friendly chime. It was a long, insistent press, the kind that signals impatience and demands attention. David and I were in the kitchen, drinking our coffee. We both froze, our eyes meeting over the rims of our mugs. We didn't have to guess who it was. The bell rang again, longer this time. Then came the pounding. A hard, rhythmic banging on the front door that vibrated through the floor. Chloe, open this door right now, we know you're in there. It was my mother's voice, shrill and stripped of all its usual pretense of sweetness. It was the voice of pure fury. David stood up, his expression hardening. Don't answer it, you don't have to. I stood up too, my heart hammering against my ribs. No, I said, my own voice surprisingly calm. I do, I'm not going to hide in my own home. This ends now, face to face. This was the final step. I had to see it through. I walked to the door, David a step behind me, a silent, solid presence at my back. I took a deep breath, turned the deadbolt, and opened the door. They were all there, huddled on my welcome mat like a pack of wolves. My mother stood in front, her face red and blotchy, her eyes narrowed to slits. Jess was beside her, arms crossed, her expression a perfect mirror of spoiled, righteous indignation. Behind them stood Mark, looking awkward and angry, his hands shoved in his pockets. They looked exhausted, rumpled, and incandescent with rage. They had clearly driven straight here after a miserable night spent regrouping. What do you want? I asked, my voice level. I didn't open the door wide enough for them to enter. I stood my ground in the doorway. What do we want? My mother screeched, taking a step forward. We want an explanation. We want to know why you would do something so vicious, so cruel to your own family. I think my text was clear, I replied, my gaze unflinching. I asked you why you lied. Lie, Jess scoffed, stepping forward. We were going to surprise you, we were going to pay you back. It was a gift for Mom, she deserved a vacation. And you, in your typical jealous way, couldn't handle it, you had to ruin it. The absurdity of the statement was breathtaking. A gift? You booked a $6,000 vacation on my credit card without my permission and you're calling it a gift for Mom? You call that a surprise? The only surprise was the charge alert on my phone, Jess. It was a temporary loan, my mother insisted, her voice rising in desperation. You have so much, Chloe, we have nothing. I just wanted one nice thing, one beautiful memory. Is that too much to ask? You have a good job, a nice apartment, a partner. What do we have? We just wanted a little piece of that, and you snatched it away from us. You left us stranded and humiliated at the airport. The self-pity, the complete refusal to accept any responsibility was the same old story I had heard 100 times before. But this time, I wasn't buying it. Let's be very clear about what happened, I said, my voice gaining strength. David put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. This wasn't about one vacation. This was about a pattern of lies and financial abuse that has been going on for my entire adult life. I looked directly at my mother. Do you remember the car, Mom? The one you swore you would make payments on? The one that nearly destroyed my credit when I was 21 because you forgot to pay the bill? I paid for that car. Did you ever pay me back? She flinched, her mouth opening and closing with no sound. And what about the plumbing emergency last year? I continued, turning my gaze to Jess. The $2,000 I sent you in a panic, was that for a plumber or was it for champagne and massages at that spa resort? You lied directly to my face. Jess's face paled. She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. This trip to Santorini was the last time, I said, my voice resonating with a finality that silenced them all. It was the last time you will ever use me as your personal bank. It was the last time you will lie to me and expect me to clean up the mess. The trip was canceled because it was booked fraudulently with a stolen credit card number. What I did wasn't sabotage, it was a consequence. It's what happens when you steal from people. Mark, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. You're tearing this family apart, he muttered, shaking his head. I almost laughed. This family was already broken, Mark. It was broken by entitlement, by lies, and by a complete lack of respect. I'm not tearing it apart. I'm just refusing to hold the broken pieces together anymore. My mother started to cry then, but they weren't the manipulative tears I was used to. They were tears of rage and defeat. You'll regret this, Chloe, she sobbed. When you're all alone, you'll regret pushing your family away. No, Mom, I said softly, and for the first time I felt a pang of pity for her. She truly believed it. She truly could not see what she had done. I'm not the one who is alone. I have David. I have friends who respect me. I'm building a life based on honesty. What do you have? A daughter you tried to steal from and another one who is happy to go along with it. You're the ones who will end up alone. There was nothing left to say. The truth had been laid bare on my doorstep and they had no defense against it. They just stood there, stunned into silence by a version of me they had never seen before. You need to leave now, I said, my voice firm. This conversation is over. My mother stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief. She had come here expecting me to break, to apologize, to fix it. She was leaving with nothing. She turned without another word, her shoulders slumped in defeat and walked away. Jess shot me one last look of pure hatred before turning to follow her, grabbing Mark's arm and pulling him along. I watched them get into their car and drive away. Then I closed my door, locked the deadbolt, and leaned my forehead against the cool wood. It was over. The confrontation I had dreaded for years was over, and I had survived. I had stood my ground. I had spoken my truth. David wrapped his arms around me from behind, and I let myself sag against him, the adrenaline leaving my body, replaced by a profound, bone-deep exhaustion and a quiet, unshakable sense of peace. The silence that followed their departure was heavy but clean. For years, my life had been filled with the noise of their needs, the constant hum of their low-grade emergencies and unspoken expectations. Now there was just quiet. It was unnerving at first, like the eerie calm after a violent storm. I kept expecting my phone to ring with an unknown number or a pleading email to appear in my inbox. And they did come, not with the same fury as before, but with a more insidious tactic, guilt. 2 days after the confrontation, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was simply "From your mother." David saw it over my shoulder as I opened it. "Are you sure you want to read that?" he asked gently. "I need to know," I said. "I need to see the last M. Ove in the game." The email was long and rambling, a masterpiece of manipulative self-pity. Brenda wrote about her difficult life, the sacrifices she'd made, her fading dreams. She painted herself as a tragic victim of circumstance, a lonely mother who only wanted a small taste of happiness. She never once used the words "I'm sorry" or "I was wrong." Instead, she wrote, "I'm sorry you felt the need to hurt us so badly, and I hope one day your heart will soften and you'll understand why I did what I did." She ended with, "I will always love you, even if you don't love me." It was designed to make me feel like a cold, heartless monster. The old Chloe would have agonized over those words. She would have felt that familiar pang of guilt, the toxic programming that told her she was responsible for her mother's happiness. But as I read it, I felt nothing but a distant, clinical pity. It was like reading a case study of a narcissist. I dragged the email to the trash folder without a reply. A few days later, a voicemail appeared from Jess, left from a friend's phone. Her tone was no longer angry but cloyingly sweet. "Hey Chloe, it's me. Listen, I think this has all been a huge misunderstanding. Mom is an absolute wreck. She's not eating, she just cries all day. I'm really worried about her. Maybe you could just call her, just to talk. She's your mother after all." It was a classic move, using my mother's well-being as a weapon to pull me back in. But I could see the strings so clearly now. It wasn't about her concern for our mother, it was about her desire to restore the old order, the one where I paid for everything and she reaped the benefits. I deleted the voicemail. The most crucial conversation I had that week was with David. We were sitting on our balcony one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "How are you really doing?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. "I feel strangely light," I admitted. "Like I've been carrying a heavy backpack for 20 years and I just took it off. But there's a part of me that's still scared. Scared that my mom was right, that I'll regret this, that I'll end up alone." David took my hand. "Chloe, look at me. You are not alone. You have me. You have incredible friends. You have a life that you built for yourself through your own hard work and integrity. The only thing you're losing is a relationship that was based on you being used. That's not love, it's an obligation, and you have every right to be free from it." His words were like a balm on the raw, wounded parts of my soul. He was right. The family I was losing wasn't real. It was a fiction I had tried to maintain at great personal cost. My real family was right here, in the people who loved me for who I was, not for what I could provide. That night, I took the final, practical steps of my liberation. I logged into all of my financial accounts. I triple-checked that my mother was not listed as an authorized user on anything. I changed every single one of my passwords to complex, unguessable strings of characters. I set up alerts for any and all activity on my credit report. I was building a fortress, not of stone and steel, but of passwords and firewalls. It was a digital declaration of independence. With each password I changed, I felt a layer of anxiety peel away. With each new security measure I put in place, the phantom weight on my shoulders lessened. I was methodically severing the last few threads that connected my financial life to theirs. It was a quiet, solitary act, but it felt more powerful than the loudest argument. The following weekend, David and I went on our planned camping trip. As we sat by the fire under a vast, star-filled sky, the silence was different. It wasn't the empty, tense silence of my apartment after the fight, it was a deep, peaceful quiet. There were no surprise charges to worry about, no manipulative texts waiting for me. There was just the crackle of the fire, the chirp of crickets, and the steady presence of the man I loved beside me. I realized that this was what true wealth felt like. It wasn't about a high credit limit or a fancy apartment. It was about peace of mind. It was about the freedom to live my life without fear of being exploited, to make my own choices without having to factor in the potential for someone else's manufactured crisis. For the first time, my future felt entirely my own. I had closed the door on the past, not with anger, but with a clear and resolute finality. I was finally truly free. Months have passed since the morning I found my family on my doorstep. The silence from their side has been absolute. There have been no more emails, no more voicemails from borrowed phones. It's as if once they realized their old tactics no longer worked, they simply ceased to exist in my world. I've seen glimpses of their lives through the social media of mutual acquaintances. Jess is still chasing her influencer dream posty. NG photos from local cafes with captions about living my authentic life. My mother appears occasionally in the background of those photos, looking older, tireder. There is no mention of Santorini. At first, the silence was a relief. Then it became a dull ache, a constant reminder of the void where a family was supposed to be. There were moments, especially around holidays or birthdays, when a wave of sadness would wash over me. I would see other people with their mothers, laughing over lunch or shopping together, and feel a sharp pang of loss for something I never truly had. I was mourning the dream, not the reality. I spoke about this with David, who listened with his usual patience. "It's okay to be sad," he told me one evening. "You're grieving, it's a real loss, but you have to remember the difference between the family you were born into and the family you choose to build." His words helped me reframe my perspective. My family wasn't gone, it had simply been redefined. My family was David, with his unwavering support and honest love. It was my small circle of close friends who had rallied around me, checking in, making me laugh, and reminding me of my own worth. It was the life we were building together, one based on mutual respect, trust, and shared dreams, not shared debt. My relationship with money has also changed. I'm no longer just saving for a rainy day, I'm saving for a future I am excited about. The money that once would have been siphoned off to fix their emergencies is now going into a joint savings account David and I started. We call it our adventure fund. We're planning our own trip, not to a place of luxurious excess, but to a place of genuine shared experience. We're thinking about hiking in Patagonia or exploring the historic cities of Japan. The destination doesn't matter as much as the fact that we will earn it together. The biggest change, however, has been within me. The timid, conflict-avoidant people-pleaser is gone. In her place is a woman who understands the importance of boundaries. I learned that saying no is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of self-preservation. I learned that you cannot force people to respect you, you can only command respect by respecting yourself first. The confrontation at my door was not just about money. It was the final, painful graduation from a school of hard knocks I had been attending my whole life. Last week, I was reviewing my credit card statement, something I now do with a sense of calm control rather than dread. I saw a charge for a nice dinner David and I had enjoyed, a new book I'd bought, our weekly groceries. It was a portrait of a normal, happy life. There were no hidden landmines, no shocking betrayals lurking in the line items. As I closed my laptop, I felt a sense of profound peace settle over me. The ghost of Santorini no longer haunts me. It is now just a strange, distant memory, a story about a different person who lived a different life. I am no longer just Chloe, the responsible daughter, the family ATM. I am Chloe, a project manager, a partner, a friend, a woman who is finally in charge of her own story. The future is an open road, and for the first time, I am the one holding the map and the keys. And I am driving toward a horizon that is bright, clear, and entirely my own. For anyone who has gone through something similar, for anyone who has been made to feel that your worth is tied to what you can provide for others, I want you to know this. Setting a boundary is the most difficult and the most liberating thing you can do. There will be backlash, there will be guilt, and there will be grief, but on the other side of all that pain is peace. You are allowed to choose yourself. You deserve a life that is your own. After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories. We are all human, navigating complex relationships and difficult choices. The journey of finding one's own strength is a universal one, and stories like these remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon.